Welcome to this orientation session on farm safety. This orientation will cover such topics as a brief overview of the laws that govern health and safety in Nova Scotia, reporting requirements, WHMIS, emergency response, animal safety, first aid, personal protective equipment or PPE, working alone, fatigue management, and confined spaces. And if you are able to, let's meet your coworkers and management team. And now, let's have a look at what the law has to say about working safely on a Nova Scotian farm. Nova Scotia has an Occupational Health and Safety Act that is applicable to all workplaces across the province. There are also regulations that support this act, which we must follow as well. Most importantly, under this OHS Act, you have three fundamental rights when it comes to working safely on a farm or for an agribusiness. Taken directly from Section 2 of the Occupational Health and Safety Act, you have the right to know, the right to participate, and the right to refuse. Let's take a closer look at these rights. You have the right to be informed by your employer of known or likely hazards on the farm or from any tasks or conditions related to the farm. Your employer must also provide you with the information, instructions, education, training, and supervision necessary to protect your health and safety. You also have the right to refuse a task or job when you believe that the work will endanger your health and safety or that of your coworkers. And finally, with your right to participate, you can have input on the steps taken by your employer to ensure your health and safety and that of your coworkers. To conclude our look at the law, let's examine the roles and responsibilities we all have while at work. The employer's responsibilities fall under Section 13 of the Nova Scotia Occupational Health and Safety Act. Under that section, they are responsible for providing a safe and healthy workplace, establishing and maintaining a health and safety program, ensuring you and your coworkers are trained and or certified as required, and that all equipment, tools, and materials are available and in good condition. They also have to provide information, instruction, and training, which ties in with your right to know. Additionally, the employer is responsible for making sure that your work is supervised in a competent fashion, that you have access to first aid services, and finally, they must also report incidents and or injuries and cases of occupational disease to the appropriate supervisor or manager. Now, the supervisor also has responsibilities under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and they can also be found in Section 13 since they are considered to be a part of the employer. As you can see, the responsibilities mirror those of the employer. A supervisor must also ensure a safe and healthy workplace, acquaint you with any hazard in connection with your work and or work area, and provide you with the information and instruction necessary to ensure your health and safety and that of your coworkers. Additionally, the supervisor is also expected to enforce the health and safety regulations, including those set by the farm. They are to correct any observed or reported unsafe acts and conditions, and just like the employer, the supervisor needs to make sure that all equipment, tools, and materials are in good condition and properly maintained before handing them to you. Finally, they are also to promote health and safety awareness among you and your coworkers. And now we come to the rest of us, the employee. We also have certain responsibilities under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and the first one is to always comply with that act and any of the regulations that support the act and are applicable to the type of work we perform. You are always to work in a manner that will ensure your health and safety and that of others. You need to report any and all hazards that you become aware of, including unsafe acts and conditions. You are to wear and or use protective equipment, consult and cooperate with your farm's Joint Occupational Health and Safety Committee and or with any person responsible for the enforcement of the Act or the regulations. This typically would be an occupational health and safety inspector. And where you can, you might want to consider joining your farm's Joint Occupational Health and Safety Committee if they have one. This is a great opportunity to exercise your right to participate. Section 31 of the Occupational Health and Safety Act spells out the functions of a Joint Occupational Health and Safety Committee, or a JOSH. A Farm Safety Committee can conduct the following. They can identify hazards through monthly inspections and or meetings. They can obtain relevant information from their employer. They can make recommendations for the improvement of occupational health and safety from their employer. They can investigate work refusals and other significant occupational health and safety events, and they can obtain information from the Department of Labor, Skills, and Immigration. Let's take a closer look now at reporting and how we should approach this important element. Reporting is simply effective communications. Management needs to know what is going on in order to make the right decisions. Therefore, reporting must be conducted for all incidents which happen at a farm, whether it involves animals, chemicals, machineries, vehicles, or in any other scenario which can or may cause an injury, fatality, sickness, or property damage. Examples of what needs to be reported include, but are not limited to, employee action, such as unsafe acts, exposure to a harmful substance, such as blood, bodily fluids, or anything that might be airborne, and if you were hit or have something strike you, or if you are bumped or have any other form of collision, this needs to be reported as well. Assaults or any form of harassment are not acceptable anywhere, ever. These would include anything physical, racial, sexual, or verbal in nature. Additionally, if you have a recurrence of a previous injury, this would also need to be reported to your supervisor or manager. And any actual or potential threat to your well-being or the well-being of others, any accident involving vehicles, slips, trips, and falls, and any injuries or illnesses caused by animals all need to be reported. Now we will take a brief look at the WHMIS program, or the Workplace Hazardous Materials Information System. The WHMIS program is made up of three basic components: pictograms or hazard symbols, labels either from the suppliers or from the workplace, and safety data sheets. The WHMIS program has been designed to provide you with knowledge about hazardous products used on your farm and how those hazards and subsequent precautions are effectively communicated to you and your coworkers. An example of effective communication of information means that you would understand the WHMIS system in general, would know about the hazards of the products that you work with, know and apply safe work practices as they relate to your jobs and tasks, and know what to do in an emergency situation. Let's consider first aid and how it plays an important role working on a farm. A best practice as it relates to first aid kits is that larger kits should be located at the main farm buildings or offices. Smaller kits should be kept on major pieces of farm equipment and in vehicles. The kits should be checked annually for expired products, and if these products have expired, they should actually be disposed of and replaced as soon as possible. In fact, anytime you use an item from a first aid kit, that item needs to be replaced immediately. And don't forget to change the batteries and flashlights to ensure that they're ready for use when you need them. Care should be taken for including personal information in first aid kits for individuals who have specific medical conditions such as allergic reactions, diabetes, etc. Contact information for the family doctor of each employee working in the vicinity of the kit should also be established. And now a word about PPE, or personal protective equipment. PPE is clothing or equipment designed to reduce your exposure to chemical, biological, and physical hazards on the farm. It is used to protect you when engineering and administrative controls are not feasible to reduce the risks to acceptable levels. And it's really important to remember, PPE does not lessen the actual hazard in any way, so always make sure you are wearing the proper PPE and wearing it correctly to provide maximum protection. And if you're not sure, ask for help. As this graphic shows, examples of personal protective equipment include, but are not limited to, protection for your head, face, hearing, respiration, hands, leg, feet, and arms. Let's consider greenhouse safety now. Whether gardening is your hobby or your profession, a greenhouse can provide the ideal environment for more efficient gardening, extended growing options, and growing across the seasons. However, there are some potential hazards to be aware of in order to protect yourself. These would include the use of chemicals, electrical safety, the equipment you use, and ergonomic issues. Other potential greenhouse hazards include heat stress, slips, trips, and falls, the tools you are working with, and working at heights. The importance of working safely with or near pesticides cannot be overemphasized. Always read the label, follow the directions, and always follow all of the safety instructions. Many incidents occur when pesticides are being mixed or prepared for use. Remembering and following these tips will go a long way to protecting your health. Always store, handle, and apply pesticides carefully. Make sure you are keeping detailed pesticide application logs as well. Ensure respirators are sealed from exposure to air and are not stored in pesticide storage areas. Also, ensure proper fit testing takes place and that everyone understands how the respirator works. And finally, create a spills response plan so that in the event of a significant release of pesticide material, everyone will know what to do. Further to a spills response procedure, keep absorbent material near pesticide storage areas to deal with any minor liquid spills. Anyone who uses pesticides must be trained in both pesticide safety and practical application skills. Always mix pesticides and load the application equipment in a separated area. When working with fertilizers, you can be exposed to a number of potentially serious hazards. Workers need to be aware of the risks they face when using fertilizers and know how to use them safely. Fertilizers can be dangerous to work with, especially in adverse weather or if they're not stored properly. Let's take a closer look at fertilizer safety. As with any actual or potential hazardous material, always read and follow the labeled instructions. Do not equate the terms organic or natural with safe for kids and pets. You must always know your fertilizer product and its ingredients to ensure yours and others' health and safety. Always wear protective clothing during handling, mixing, and application, and always try to do your very best to avoid unintentional drifting, runoff, or spills. Finally, you must always strive to limit the negative environmental impact fertilizers can have. When mixing and applying fertilizers, be aware of your pets and other animals that may be near you. Part of understanding the products you are working with would include knowing and understanding your product's re-entry period. And after mixing and application, make sure you store your fertilizer products properly and according to the manufacturer's instructions. And always be prepared for taking corrective action should an emergency situation arise. We now conclude our orientation with a look at other types of hazards and their controls. If you know you will be working alone at some point in your workday, make sure your employer has a working alone plan that can be put into use. All plans basically contain some type of regular communications within a time frame where the start and end points are known in advance. Additionally, since working alone should be considered a hazard unto itself, a best practice is to have a one-day emergency first aid training in place for each worker that might be working alone. With fatigue being among the top 5 causes of worker incidents, fatigue management is an important part of a firm's health and safety program. Fatigue while on the job can be very dangerous for you and for others as well. Always ensure your equipment and tools are ready for use when you need them, and be sure as well that you are also ready. Confined spaces on the farm can pose a significant risk of injury and death. Hazards in confined spaces can result in fires, explosions, unconsciousness, asphyxiation, or drowning. Never enter a confined space unless you have been properly trained and have the appropriate equipment and manpower available. There are many benefits to working on a farm, not the least of which is working outside where fresh air and sunshine are abundant. Farm work is typically a good way to stay in shape and to use your body and your mind in a positive manner. But as with any job, hazards are also present, and we must always be on our guard to prevent them from harming us or our coworkers. Thank you very much for watching this farm safety orientation.